I'm Janet McHenry, and today in this Writing Wise presentation, I am going to share 33 different ways that could help you boost your actual writing productivity. And what I want to do first is to acknowledge the creator of most of these ideas, Jeff Hayden, in this article from Inc.com, where this originated. And that was an article for general business people, not specifically writers. So I've adapted some of these presentations for you today. The first idea is to create systems and not just goals. So for the last 2 weeks, and you could check out the earlier 4 different presentations that I've done on setting goals and executing them, etc., developing plans to further your goals and get all of that work done. So you can check those out. But it occurred to me that some of that didn't necessarily relate to the particular habits that we have as writers and as people. So, one thing you might think about is to commit to a process, not just a goal. So, instead of just setting a goal to create, a better writing product, think about how specifically create specific plans to actually execute that. Don't just think, oh, I'm going to write a book, this year, but commit to a process that's actually going to lead toward that overall goal, and you're going to be much more likely to achieve it. So focus on what you will do as opposed to what you hope will happen. Create that definite plan and make sure that you stick to it. The next thing here is the idea of maximizing the important tasks. All of us have things that kind of make a big difference in our lives. For me, it's actually sitting down and writing. So, what 2 or 3 things that you do that contribute to your success? Think about 2 or 3 things that actually generate that productivity for you. Is it just having that cup of coffee already ready? What is it going to be? And what think about what will create an environment that will help you achieve what you want to do, so that you reap the best benefits from spending time on the tasks that make you the best productive picture of you. One thing that I highly suggest is to make temptations hard to reach and to remove those distractions that are always going to create problems for you. Think about how when something's hard for us to do, and for some of us, it's the words are hard to come up with, we tend to want to put that off. So think about, do you need your water? And if you need water, don't just have like an 8-ounce glass of water there. Get one of those 40-ounce mega kind of coffee mugs for yourself, so that you're not having to get up continually and up continually. Yes, we do want to make sure that we're taking care of our physical structure, our bones and our muscles and all of that. But there are always ways when I know personally that I head to the refrigerator and think, well, I need some seltzer water or something like that. I know that there are going to be other things in my kitchen and my living room area that will distract me if I go down there. So I invested in one of those giant Stanley mugs, and I've got my 40 ounces of things that are going to be ready. You know what those distractions typically are. You know that, when your phone pings, you look at it. So what I often will do is I just take my phone and I'll throw it across the room onto my cozy chair, and I'll leave it there. And the ping won't be loud enough so as to distract me. Shut down your browser perhaps as well, if that's going to be something that's going to pull you away continually, and turn off all those crazy notifications on your computer so that you are most productive when you're actually sitting down. Here's another concept that I think I found really interesting, and I believe in this to allow yourself less time to do the work. If you've given yourself a year to write your book, for example, and you've heard me say this before, that's probably too much time. There are going to be way too many distractions, temptations in there, and you're going to lose focus. If you're extending that you're writing over that long of a period of time, there are going to be so many things that are going to pull you away from that focused attention, and you're going to lose sense of what your book is. Um, if you think about that time is like a new house, we eventually fill the house with furniture, right? If we get a bigger house, we're going to put more stuff into it. So if you have a longer period of time that you've allowed yourself to complete your book, you're going to fill a lot of that time with stuff that's going to take you off focus to be able to get the project done. Um, if you shorten that deadline for yourself, give yourself like 3, 6 months, stick to that. 3, 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. Um, you can still create achievable goals for yourself to be able to get that writing done. Oh, yeah, we need to go back to 7. There we go. Okay, so another idea is, just to save time overall. We still have to take care of a house. We still have kids. We still have other obligations, church obligations, other things. You may be going to a job to be able to chunk those kind of housekeeping tasks that you might have, and whether they are literal housekeeping kinds of tasks or whether they are simply related to your writing business, you can be more productive if you kind of have a planned schedule for all those things that you do. Here's just one that I suggested here. If we have a Monday through Friday kind of schedule, maybe Monday is the day where you dig in, you take care of all your email, all those kinds of questions, etc. Frankly, I take care of me email pretty close to first thing every single morning, no matter what day it is, because I feel like people in the business world, if they've asked me a question, or people in my audience have asked me a question, they've asked for something via email, they deserve a response. And that it keeps everything kind of clean for me, because those things will be otherwise hanging over my head. This is just kind of a suggestive framework. If you might work better doing a little of this one day, a little of this another day. You could, on Tuesday of that week, you could do everything that you can create all your things that you're gonna post on social media, and then have them scheduled to drop on the specific days that you want. Wednesday, maybe you have a Facebook group or a couple Facebook groups. Maybe Wednesday is the day you go in and you provide some kind of content, encouragement, respond to comments on earlier on your Facebook group pages. Maybe that's the day you do that. Maybe on Thursdays, maybe that's the day where you think about, like, how could I promote something in my business world, whether it's a meme relating to some content from your book, something like that. Maybe that's what you could do that day. And then maybe Friday, maybe you want to leave the weekend with a completely clear desk. Maybe it's working on that paperwork. It might be anything that you have to file away for taxes, things like that. But you can chunk all of those tasks in such a way that you know that they will get taken care of by the end of the week, but they are not continually nagging at you. Going to the next slide. Okay, you can read as well as I do. I think for some of us, we try to push off responsibility for our lack of productivity on other people. Yes, certainly there will be those kind of crises times of our lives. A child gets sick and is in the hospital, or someone needs particular kind of care, whatever that might be, a parent and so forth. But um, when we're trying to excuse our lack of productivity onto other people because they have slipped into our lives in various kinds of ways, we need to step back from that kind of a mental perspective and just take ownership. God has given each of us 24 hours a day. um, Taking responsibility when things don't go the way you hope or the way you expect for your day. I think it will help you just examine your schedule and see the ways that you can kind of change how you respond to others or situations, and then kind of work with that. Here's another idea that I love. Just say no. Just say no. So you're polite, you're courteous, you're helpful. You want to be a team player at your workplace or in your family. But here's the thing: you're overwhelmed. You have way too many things on your plate. And maybe a lot of those things aren't things that actually God has said, yeah, you need to do. Think about saying no, or even more often than when you say yes. You can still be polite, but yet protect your time. And you should protect your time. It's the one asset that no one can actually afford to waste, particularly when that's complete when someone has asked you to take on something is out of your gifting, that is going to be a huge long-term kind of commitment. Here's an example. Um, I decided I didn't need to be the super mom in public places. I only needed to kind of be the super mom at home. Make sure my kids got fed, make sure that their laundry was done, all the things, checking with them on homework, going to parent conferences and all those kinds of things. But I decided I didn't need to go to PTA meetings. I didn't need to be in the booster club. I didn't need to be on the site council team, even though I was asked over and over again. But here's the thing I did do. If the booster club, I could be a member, but just not attend meetings. I could be a member, and when they have a bake sale, that they're going to have at a basketball game or something like that, I could make cookies that one time. Maybe not for every game, but I could do it once. I could show up for that short-term commitment. So think about long-term commitments, short-term commitments. How much of your time, how much of your slice that you've got dedicated to writing is that going to pull away for you? And you can say no. I love this idea also about starting small. The idea of sitting down and giving yourself a goal to write a chapter in a week, that feels overwhelming. But you can write 250 words. Each of us can write 250 words at least in an hour. Okay, so tell yourself, Monday, I'm writing 250 words. Okay, and then Tuesday, I'm going to write 500 words. Wednesday, I'm going to write 1,000 words. And then Thursday, Friday, I'm going to go back to what I've written, that finished chapter now, and I'm going to go back and edit it. I'm going to make those productive changes there, and it will get done. But if you set that larger goal over there, for some of us, that's going to be overwhelming. Sit down and write a chapter this week. Just set those incremental kinds of goals for yourself. Yes, you can build in frequent breaks, but use your phone in such a way that you're giving yourself a time limit on those breaks. So I do take a break for lunch. Typically, that's my transitional time of the day. I do my Bible study. I get all my things scheduled for social media. I get that all done in the morning. I answer emails. Then I have lunch. When is lunch? Well, some days that might get done by 11 o'clock. Some days that might be at 1. But I have lunch, but I set a limit on that. And the limit is typically 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And most of the time, I tend to bring that back to my computer anyway, and I'm still working while I'm eating. But so you can build in those frequent breaks, but again, refuse to allow those kinds of distractions that we talked about earlier to creep into that particular space. Don't forget to take care of yourself too. Exercising first thing in the morning, you find will be helpful. Eat a healthy lunch every day. Make sure that you're getting plenty of water during the day, shooting for about 4 glasses of water by noon, and then four glasses of water by the end of the afternoon. That will get your 8 glasses in. So make sure that you're using healthy kinds of personal practices, because in the long run then you're going to be more productive, you're going to be more healthy, and we are more productive when we are healthy. We can tell ourselves that I am okay with less than perfect. I am okay with this first draft being less than perfect. I don't have to have that perfect prose by the end of the day, just getting the words down. And a lot of that might be, part of remembering that part of the writing process is actually doing research, biblical research, having the information you need, having all of that at your fingertips so that you can refer to it instead of feeling like you're sitting down in a blank void, that there's nothing up here to pull from, but you've already kind of done some prep for the writing itself. And then you can just get the words out, because you're going to allow yourself some time to go back and reorder those words and make them a little more stellar. Here's another sermon sounding kind of bit of coaching from Janet today. Um, Stop trying to impress other people. I deal with this myself. There are many obligations I have taken on that weren't necessarily part of my pie slice, that's supposed to represent the calling on my life. I don't have to, again, I don't have to go to those booster club meetings. I don't have to be attend all of the city council meetings, although lots of people here want me to run for city council. Of course they do, 'cause I get things done. But, stop feeling like you have to impress people and take obligations on that really you should have no sense doing. Um, Focus on what really matters to you, and then that will free up a lot of time you once wasted by worrying about what you thought was going to make other people like you more. Okay, face that one. Face that one. This is really important. Um, Use your mind for thinking, not remembering. This is a really interesting idea here. Instead of allowing your brain to be filled up with all these mental to-do list things or information you think you remember, write those things down. Put them in a bullet journal. Get them done. Allow yourself, a certain period of time to do those kinds of things. Don't allow all those thoughts to sort of clutter your mind. Write them down so that you can focus about how to be more productive with your writing. And those things might be, order such and such from Amazon, go to the grocery to do whatever, write so and so a sympathy card, all those kinds of things. Make that part of, your business time, and those things that don't necessarily require a lot of brain space. There just has to be done. Certainly, if we're writing a sympathy card or a thank you card, our heart needs to be in that. But and I try to get those things done quickly. And even today, I wrote a card to a cousin. She wrote my mom a sweet Christmas card and letter, and I guess the family didn't get her notified that my mom had passed away last year. So I did that as part of my business time. That's part of my morning before I kind of jumped into the more creative aspects of your life. It's going to take a lot of brain space. And so to be able to be creative and get those words out on paper. So those to-do lists, if you keep track of them, write things down, and then you don't have to worry about forgetting them. Just have a place you put those tasks, whether that's a bullet journal or your calendar or just some other little to-do list thing that you've bought you stick on your fridge. And then kind of batch them all together and get them done. Let those small successes inspire you. This goes back to setting those smaller goals. So if you had a goal of writing 250 words and you sit down and oh my goodness, you found that you've got 350 or 500, celebrate that. Celebrate that you got 250 words down. Celebrate that you got that far of an achievement done. Allow that to encourage you and inspire you to keep on keeping on. We it's hard to develop particular kinds of habits. So decide that you don't need to be a world class writer right away. That goal is too big. So wherever you are, allow that little bit of achievement to inspire you to keep on keeping on. I encourage writers to, as they are writing, so you've got an outline for your chapter of some kind or for your devotional book, whatever you're doing, to finish at a great point. If if your goal is to write 250 words, don't stop in the middle of a sentence. Don't stop in the middle of the paragraph. Finish that thought. Let that chunk get done. For example, in a Christian living chapter, you probably are going to have at least like 5 sections in that chapter. You're going to have an introductory anecdote. You're going to have 3 teaching points, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. You're going to have kind of an application piece at the end with takeaway for the reader. So challenge yourself to write that full intro section, that full anecdotal piece. And another day, challenge yourself to finish that whole first teaching point. Don't stop in the middle of that teaching point. Try to get all of that done. Say you get interrupted. You got to take the kid to music lessons or to game practice or something like that. Can you come back to it at the end of the day while it's kind of still fresh in your mind? And if you didn't get that first teaching point done, can you come back to it and finish it off? That will give you that sense of momentum that's going to help push you to complete your work. Ernest Hemingway said, the best way is to always stop when you are doing good and when you know what will happen next. If you do that every day, you'll never be stuck. So clearly, Ernest Hemingway knew when to when to stop. You can gently eliminate permissions, and what I mean by this is sometimes, and this is not necessarily for ourselves. This is for the other people in our lives. If we always allow our teenagers to come and interrupt us in a phone call, while we're working on our computer, while we're writing, while we're doing our Bible study, and we allow that to continue on, they're just going to keep doing it. They're just going to keep doing it. So train them, create habits for them, not just for yourself, in terms of saying, if you see mom and I'm completely focused in on the work that I'm doing on my computer and I don't look up at you, could you come back later, please? Could you learn to ask yourself, tell your teenager, your husband, or whoever that might be, to ask themselves, does this need to be done right now? Do I need to bug mom about this right now? I had a friend who, whenever I would sit down to a conversation with her, her kids were constantly badgering her with this, that, and the other thing. Always. It never ended. And it created habits that, I think alienated some other people from having relationships with her. So gently eliminate those kinds of permissions that you've allowed. Maybe, you allow phone calls to just come at any given time. You can not answer your phone. You cannot answer your phone. If you look at your phone and it doesn't look like that's going to be something important you need to do right then, you can get back to them. Um, Learn how to also prune your to-do list. A to-do list with 20 to 30 items is not only daunting, it's also depressing. So it's overwhelming. It's too much. And can you also learn to delegate some of what's on your to-do list to someone else? I'm the worst at this. I am a baby boomer generation wife who wanted to do all the things for the husband. And so now I'm retraining him to learn how to do some of those things himself, so as to lighten my load. I would like to also challenge you to drop one personal commitment, and to drop any of those ego kinds of commitments. So, what I mean by that is, maybe you get invited to be on the church board. That's very exciting. That's very impressive. Maybe you get invited to be part of a volunteer network for a national Christian organization. That's very flattering. That feeds the ego. You feel really great about yourself. Wow, I'm going to make a difference in the world. Would you please pray about that first? Because if God has called you to write this particular project, is that in your slice? Is that in your writing slice of this piece of the pie? That is your life. Is that going to take away from that? Is that going to pull you away? So prune that. Drop one personal commitment. Yep. Okay. We can go to that. Okay. Drop one personal commitment. Okay. Next thing. Uh, Here, I'm speaking to myself here to stop whining. My words have power even over myself. So, whining about my problems, whining about my commitments, whining about what someone has or hasn't done is sucking energy and creativity out of me. So, that is not a healthy place. And it is time wasting too. And so, instead of like mulling over that and getting all moody and and taking the time to complain even vocally to my husband, if I took that same amount of time and just handed it over the Lord and said, okay, God, I trust you for this situation. Now I'm going to go about doing that which you have called me to do instead. I highly recommend that you map out your week in advance and that you actually schedule calendar time there for your writing and then stick to that. Think of that as that is an appointment. That is an appointment you have with God in your computer to do the work He's asked you to do. The best time to do this is probably Sunday afternoon or evening to kind of look at what's ahead, figure out what meetings you have, what can you get rid of, what can you delegate to someone else. Block out that time on your calendar for your writing. Think about the to-dos that you have, the appointments you have, and realistically ask yourself, am I going to be able to be productive kind of weaving all these things together? I know personally, as someone who lives an hour away from anything, and I'm talking about doctor's appointments or shopping. We have a tiny little grocery store here. So major shopping has to be done in Reno, which is about an hour away. So I know that if I have to go to a doctor's appointment about an hour away, it's an hour there, it's an hour back, it's an hour at the doctor appointment or more, that I am going to be like mentally really out of that for the rest of the day. And so, what I might attempt to do instead is put those kinds of tasks, business related tasks, not necessarily creative writing, for the rest of the day because I know that I can accomplish those, whereas I might mentally not be there for the creative work that is required for writing. Okay, this is a tough one. This concept to stop multitasking, um, because I consider myself a queen of it. But as I've read scientific studies, I have to recognize that it is very difficult to be doing several things all at once. If I am in a Zoom meeting, here's an example. If I'm in a Zoom meeting and I'm theoretically supposed to be listening, taking notes, contributing in some way, but I'm also off on my social media answering comments and things like that, two ideas are not going to come into my brain at the same time. They're just simply not. And overall, it's not going to be productive. I probably will be making mistakes on the work that I'm trying to do while I'm supposedly listening to this meeting. Maybe you can relate to that. Some of us may not have a really good sense of how long it takes us to do something. If you are posting on social media, you're creating content there, you're designing memes that you're going to share on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, wherever, you can get so absorbed in that you may lose sense of the time that it actually takes you to get it done. Be thoughtful about that. Give yourself a deadline. So maybe on your calendar, you put down 10 to 10:30, social media, create social media post. And then you stick to that because you can go all over the place. Once you're on social media, you can spend hours there messing around, watching videos, which aren't going to be helpful at all. And then be also thoughtful about those kind of breaks that you do take during the day. I mentioned this earlier. Your lunch can take an hour, or it can take 30 minutes, or it can take 10 minutes. So be thoughtful, particularly about what you're doing with those breaks as well. Track your time. Maybe write down one coaching suggestion. Always is, to track your days. Actually, how many minutes do you spend doing this, that, and the other thing, and that will give you a greater sense of how you then need to schedule writing. And how that's going to work for you in particular. Yeah. Okay. I put up here, mom always said, don't say stupid. Um, eliminate one stupid thing. One thing that just isn't productive. Maybe it's one thing that you tell yourself, well, it really helps me relax. It helps me this, that, or the other. I need a good laugh for today. So I'm going to watch 3 hours of YouTube videos. We don't really need to be doing that, do we? So eliminate one thing that is not going to help you achieve your goals. Rehearse the perfect way to say no. Most of us will default to saying yes because we don't want to seem rude. We don't want to seem unfriendly. We don't want to seem like we're not a team player. But that also means that we're defaulting to something that we know we're not really supposed to be doing. You can say, you rehearse that answer that you're going to have when you say no. I'm sorry, I don't have time in my schedule for that now. I'm sorry, I respect the work that you're doing here. Can I write a little check or contribution instead that could help the organization, and that kind of thing. So have that in your head, what you're going to say. You can also eliminate useless sort of me time commitments. And I've chose this visual here because I get so distracted on my phone. So if you, for example, you like to watch reels on Facebook or Instagram, and maybe it is relaxing, but, again, once you start, it's kind of really addictive. They say that it really fuels you. It gives you those kinds of hormonal responses that are positive. But here's the thing. it will be even more positive. You'll have a more positive hormonal reaction to getting your work done, to getting the writing done, than you will watching videos or whatever it is. Just say this to yourself: I will do better. The text I was reading was, I will try to do better. I made it a little stronger. Tell yourself, I will do better. I will do better today. I will use my time wisely today, God. I will listen to you, God, and I will stick to the schedule you've helped me create. Just have that positive kind of language with yourself, because at the end of the day, if you allow all those other distractions to creep in, then you're going to say, oh, I really wasted the day. And that's all negative. So let's stay positive at the beginning of the day and then keep repeating that. Set hard limits for yourselves. And that relates to that shorter kind of timeline to be able to get a book done. For example, set those hard limits, make yourself deadlines and stay to them. When I'm on contract and I'm writing under a deadline, then I set out, I go on the calendar and I set deadlines for chapters and I stick to those. And I always allow myself probably 2 to 4 weeks before the deadline to actually complete the work. That will give me at least a couple days to read through it, make any kind of editorial changes. And I've been editing as I've been writing chapters going along. But set those hard deadlines for yourself, because they will establish those parameters for what you can say yes to. When you want to go out to lunch with a friend, get the chapter done. Tell yourself, I will go out to lunch with a friend, but I will complete that chapter first. Because there will be all kinds of things that want to creep into your time. Having nighttime and morning routines are really important, because they will set the tone. The morning routines will set the tone for the rest of the day. You have certain disciplines you do. You get up, you make your bed. All those kinds of things that are, that establish the fact that you are a disciplined person. I will read the scriptures today, and you allow time for that and do whatever you need to do. I will address those business concerns that are in my email before I look on anything on social media. So hit the ground running with a great start to the day, but also have particular nighttime routines as well, because then that will kind of set the tone for your sleep. And as you have completed the work you need to be able to do, you're going to be able to sleep better. You're going to get better sleep because you'll be at peace when you go to bed in the evening. You can outsource the right kinds of tasks. Many of us might want to try to, for example, design a newsletter ourselves, or create our own website. I don't know about you, but my brain is not as great on the tech side of things like that. And I want those particular products, my website, my newsletter, and I'm just using these as examples, to be professional looking and to create the right kind of impression, um, you know, that I'm a trusted source in regard to prayer and the study of God's word. And so if that all looks haphazard and it takes hours and hours and hours out of my time, then it's just not going to be a good use of my time. So those are the two things that I typically outsource. Once in a while, I'll get coaching. Once in a while, I might have somebody design a particular item for myself, but I've learned to use Canva really effectively. So outsource those kinds of things that are going to take way too much time away from your writing. And what does that mean? That means expending a little money. Yes. And that can add up quickly. However, if you're looking at this not only as ministry, but as a ministry business, we all have to invest in our ministry business in some kind of way. And particularly in the early years, you know that most businesses are running in the red, whether they are ministry focused or they're not. The little coffee shop down the corner isn't going to make $1 million the first year. I mean, you've read those studies as well. So outsource those things that are going to suck a lot of time from you and take away from your writing. Think about your particular workday, and maybe it's not worked for you. So stop doing the same thing. Stop doing the same thing. If yet that's what you've always done and it's not working, get up earlier or get up later or take care of emails in an hour after you start work, eat at your desk, rework your work day. In other words, maybe do actually the opposite of what you have normally done. If you've reached your goal, if you've not reached your goal, then what you are currently doing, hello, is not working for you. So instead of tweaking an approach, change it completely. Change it completely and see how that helps you. I think it's really important to eliminate the number of meetings. Again, and this goes back to maybe some of those ego commitments that we've taken on, whatever that might be. For me, it was, a couple position, church board, um, a nonprofit organization board, those kinds of things. Like, well, yeah, that was really nice and it looked good on my resume, right? We love those things, but that they require lots of meeting time, and that was just not what I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to be able to focus in on a larger message so that I could present. One kind of very practical suggestion here is to, as much as possible, to only touch things one time. Difference between how my husband handles mail and how I handle mail. My husband will pick up his mail and it will sit in a pile. And then maybe one day, a couple days, days later, he will decide to open it. And then it will sit in that pile unanswered, undealt with, unfiled for who knows however long. However, when I get my mail, I come home and I immediately look at it. Lots of that mail, I tear in two and throw it right in the trash because I know that there's solicitations, they're bulk mail that I didn't ask to get. And then other kinds of mail, if they're bills, I immediately put them in the bill folder in my budget book. If it's a package like I received today and it's got an invoice in it, I immediately put the things where they need to go, and I take the invoice and I put it in my writer envelope, my writer expense envelope. So only learning how to handle those things very quickly, and even as much as just once, if that means tearing that solicitation and throwing it in the trash, it's done, it's gone, and it'll take less of your brain space. With writing, can be viewed as a very kind of a scary kind of practice, right? Go ahead and do what you've been afraid to do. Sit down at that computer and put those words out there. We're all afraid of what might happen, that we can't change, that we're not smart enough, that we're not equipped enough, that we don't know how to put words together enough, all the things. Just do that thing you've been afraid to do. And that might be public speaking, because writing and speaking go hand in hand. So get as much education as you can about what you will need to be able to put those words on the computer screen, and then just keep stepping into that. We all have growth points. We're all learning. I just took a whole mega speaking boot camp last summer, when I've actually been doing public speaking for 25 years. So and part of this is going to be reaching out to organizations about potentially being a speaker for them. Do those hard things. You will be all right. You really will be all right. So this has been a lot of fun. I learned a lot from this. It's given me quite a few challenges to be able to examine my personal life, especially at the beginning of the year here, to get me motivated. After I put this together last week, I looked at my office, which was a disaster. It was just such a horrible mess. And I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get all these pieces organized. And I threw out like a giant trash bag full of paper that I didn't need. And, so all those kinds of things to help streamline my life I know will make me more productive as a writer. So thank you for being here today on Writing Wise, and I hope this has been helpful. You can always contact me through Book Marketing Pro Academy, which is an arm of Redemption Press, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.